I'm up in the place. Say yo, watch them correct. Got you all in check. Throw your hands up in the air. Don't ever disrespect. I got you all in check.
But I want to focus on one particular verse, and it's going to spar us off into all the other scriptures. And we want to focus on verse 48. All right, we're going to focus on Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48. And I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go ahead and get this thing started. All right. And hope everybody's day is gone pretty well, man. Pretty well. Let me just look through it, see who's here, man. We can get y'all. What's up, J Man? Built for Speed 101. What's going on, bruh? Surreal in the comment section, trying to get it in. Hey, what's going on, Sister Leader for Christ? Hey, dog, what's going on? Who will be saved? Hopefully, that's all, right? Of course, I'm in the comment section. What's going on, Brother Brian? What's going on, bro? Who else? Brother Isaiah. Man, I'm gonna just call you Isaiah, man. Let me see. Isaiah T. Yo, what's going on? What else? Who else is in there? All right, so far, them brothers there. And if anybody else, comment or whatever, because I'll greet them later. All right, cool. So let me turn off my camera, share my screen, and let's get into this thing. All right, present to everybody. All right, cool. Let me show it popped up for everybody. I'm looking at the live feed right quick. All right, cool. What's up? All right, cool. So with any live stream that we do, especially when we show footage of different videos from different sources, we always want to put up this fair use notice. We are not trying to reproduce or sell anything or make money off somebody's video. This is strictly for educational purposes. And that's covered under the Fair Use Policy Act, just in general, right? So as I said, the title, A Yoke of Iron Upon Thy Neck. Who else been through this curse of Deuteronomy 28 and 48? Now, before I get into it, I want to make a couple of disclaimers. The first one is, this live stream is not to downplay slavery in general or the events that took place during the transatlantic slave trade, but rather to bring forth the truth of the scriptures in their context. Once again, this is not to downplay slavery in general, because all of us on this panel agree, and we say in multiple hangouts, that slavery, taking someone's slave or captive from their land and beating them and raping them and all this other stuff, these evil acts, is all evil. And we don't and we don't make an excuse for any of it. It's all evil done by evil men. But at the same time, as evil as it is, as bad as the transatlantic slave trade and all the other slave trades that has taken place in the history of man, or have been, you cannot twist the Holy Scriptures to try to fit a narrative it is not painting. So if it's not talking about that, do not try to fit that there. Let the Scriptures say what it is saying. Let the truth be what the truth is. And so we can move on and keep the Scriptures pure and untwisted by these men that's twisting these Scriptures out here in the streets. So once again, this is not to downplay slavery in general or the events that took place during the transatlantic slave trade, but rather to bring forth the truth of the Scriptures in their context. I want you to take notice of something. According to the Black Hebrew Israelites, in order to understand what the Bible is saying, you must go precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line. I didn't put the extra line upon line there, but here a little, there a little. And that's what they use Isaiah 28, verse 9 through 10 to solidify that doctrine of how they interpret the Bible. The problem with this interpretation, which is false, by the way, is that as you read down to verse 13, and if I was quoting it off the top of my head, so if I got the verse wrong, somebody let me know. But when you read down to verse 13, it says this: but the word of the Lord was unto them, precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken. So if precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, is the way in which you should read or try to understand the Bible, the Scripture is letting you know, a couple of verses down, that is not a good thing.
Alrighty, back to Isaiah 28 and 10. I did a few videos on it, and I don't think I was clear, so I'm about to try to clear it up. Brother Jay was talking about Isaiah 28 and 13, basically saying that it's not a good thing. And of course, I agree with Brother Jay. It's not a good thing. But when you read verse 9 of Isaiah 28, whom shall he teach? Hold on. Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. So basically, those that are being reborn, that are humbling themselves to the will of God, because in Isaiah 28:10, God was our salvation, and I'll bring that out here shortly. So when it says, "Who shall you teach?" it's basically those that are being reborn, and that's gonna be waiting on God. Because when you wait on God the Father, then basically what you're doing is you're relying on him for everything. So when you're weaned from a milk, you're like a baby. What does a baby do? It needs everything from the mother, from the breast. It needs that protection. It needs that guidance. It needs that teacher. So when you're weaned from the milk, that's basically saying that now you are gaining this understanding. That's why I'm saying precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. So basically, if you don't follow the commandments of God, for stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. Who would be this other tongue? Other nations. Other nations when they come and put your butt into slavery, when they conquer and siege your villages, like in Deuteronomy 28:49. A nation came from afar with the language that you did not speak, swift as the eagle cometh or flieth. That's what this is talking about. So if you don't humble yourself and rely on God for everything, he will send another nation to whom he said this rest, verse 12, to whom he said, this is the rest wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest, and this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear. So it's so clear they would not hear the commandments of God, and they would not rely on God for everything. But the word of the Lord was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go and fall backwards and be broken, snared, and taken. So when they teach precept upon precept, it's basically what I understand that the brothers are doing to keep you from falling in a snare, teaching you to follow those commandments of God. Brother Jay is saying that's bad, but what is good is you teach them knowledge, those that are going to be reborn again, that's going to be born again, so they won't become wicked and fall backwards and backslide and do everything that's contrary unto the Lord. So you got to teach them. That's when you teach wisdom. Wherefore, hear the word of the Lord, ye scornful men that rule this people which is in Jerusalem. So he's basically telling you to teach this people. Otherwise, they're going to go in captivity. So, hey, Brother Jay, you can say it's a bad thing, and maybe it's bad to you because you don't want to follow the commandments. You think it's a burden. You think that's a burden to follow the word of God. So that's so sad, because even Jesus, when he walked the earth, he followed the commandments of God, and he said, "I did not come to speak my own words, but him that sent me." Okay, so the word of God is all throughout the Old Testament, and being detailed with clarity in the New Testament. All right, let's look at Deuteronomy 28:49. Let's see what the stammering lips and the other tongue is. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce continents. Because if you're not going to follow the word of the Lord, then he's not going to give you rest. He's going to make you weary. And this people are going to rule you with that yoke of iron. So that's being referenced in verse 48. So You know, y'all can play games with it and say, you know, Deuteronomy 28 and 49, you know, was fulfilled already. But that's pretty misleading, especially when you talk about the Babylonian captivity, the Persian captivity, the Greek captivity, the Roman captivity, the the Muslim captivity. So if you got all these different captivities that are being fulfilled with Deuteronomy 28, how wicked or vain are you to think that basically uh, Babylonia was going to be the end, or the Persians was going to be the end? That just shows how wicked you are when you think like that. And just to kind of put this milk and strong meat into perspective, you know, everybody wants to run a Paul like they understand Paul, but listen to what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 3 and 2. For all of those that think they understand Paul and think they know what he's talking about, oh, you can eat anything you want. You got to remember, Paul said he'd be a Gentile or heathen to gain a heathen. So this is what he says in 1 Corinthians 3 and 2. I have fed you with milk and not with meat. Wow. So everybody that's running a Paul saying they're Christian and they haven't been to the Old Testament and say they understand Scripture, no, they don't. No, they're only dealing with Paul, because Paul tells you, I have fed you with milk and not with meat. For hitherto ye were not able to bear it, neither yet now are you able. So he's letting you know, even then you weren't ready for the strong meat. But let's go to Hebrews 5. You know, everybody wants to run in Hebrews 5 and 10, but let's go to Hebrews 5, 12 through 14 and see what Brother Paul has to say. For when the time yet ye ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God. The first principles of the oracles of God. What are the oracles of God? The Old Testament. And are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. And if you're saying that you could basically eat anything you want, you don't have to keep Sabbath, and you don't have to do this, and you don't have to do that, right there is showing you that you're not ready for the strong meat, because you can't discern both good and evil. So just like Brother Jay said, you know, precept upon precept isn't a good thing. He's not able to discern both good and evil, because no matter how full of age he thinks he is, he's still a baby that's on the meat, on the milk. He's not ready for that strong meat yet, and he's a baby trying to be a teacher. And you got babies listening to him and rooting him on, and it's sad.
That is not a good thing. And that method that they use is how they piece together these different verses to paint the narrative that Deuteronomy 28 is talking about the transatlantic slave trade. All right. So I want y'all to notice, when dealing with most Black Hebrew Israelites, that for everything in the Bible, they try to run and get a precept to answer or give the understanding. But notice when Deuteronomy 28 comes up, they then start freestyling history. Why don't they go get a precept for this? Maybe because it will show how those things have been fulfilled already in Scripture. Is that the reason why? If someone asks the question, can you show me a precept of the yokes of iron in the Bible? They resort to their pictures and their history and saying, who else had yokes of iron? Now they're talking to people who probably ain't done America history, let alone no history of the world, to answer a question like that. And most of those guys in the streets can't even answer that question. Who else? They only been alive for 20, 30 years, maybe a little bit more. They've been taught Americanized history and not world history. And therefore they start asking, who else? Well, the Bible's going to tell you who else, if you didn't know before now. So let's go ahead and get into this. Now, y'all shall all be familiar with the following images used by the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. All right, you have it on the far left, Deuteronomy 28:48, talking about the yokes of iron. These are slave collars. All right, when you guys, I meant to get the definition just to show you guys the history behind that particular collar, because you see that picture floating around a lot. But when you guys look into it, it's a slave collar, and basically those guys were attempting runaway slaves. They put that collar with the spikes and the lines coming out from it, so that if they try to hit the woods, they wouldn't be able to get through the trees. They'd get stuck. So it'd be easy for them, the dogs and whoever's coming after them, to catch them. Okay, so that's those runaway slaves, or those slaves that's shown to be rebellious. They put that on them. All right. You also see this one's from a movie. I forgot what movie it's from, but once again, depicting this chains of iron around there, or metal, whatever case iron is a metal, around their necks. Right. You also see these images, and we're not negating this. This is actually something that happened. This is not a cartoon. This is an actual real life event, but it is the scripture talking about that. That's what tonight is about. Over on the far right, it says Deuteronomy 28:48, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So y'all should be familiar. I'm gonna go through a couple of these famous images you guys probably seen, and then it's gonna catapult us right into that scripture. I'm pretty sure y'all seen this one. A lot of the Black Hebrew Israelites, when you bring up the Jewish Holocaust, then they'll say, this is the real Holocaust. 6 million people ain't nothing compared to 77 million or 100 million. So then they'll degrade the persecution of the Jews and then say this is the real Holocaust because more people died. Not that people died in general by the hands of evil men, but that number or estimated number is greater, right? So the real Holocaust, right? So Deuteronomy 28:15 through 68, as we know, that's dealt with them. Deuteronomy 28 is the cults, or is the magnet point of that doctrine, right? So you guys seen this picture. I'm pretty sure you guys have also seen this one, right? Wake up, black man. Your history is in the Bible. So what is the black man's history in the Bible? They're saying it's Deuteronomy 28:48.
All right, Brother Jay was just talking about Deuteronomy 28:48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Let's see where Brother Jay is going with this.
Thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So they say that this is the black man in America, Native Americans or Hispanics for most camps. There are some camps that deny Hispanics and Native Americans, but just in a general sense, those three groups are the ones that's covered. And they say that's their history. Here's another photo. Once again, quoting that scripture. Who am I? They think the pictures with chains, people with chains around their necks, is identifying that they're the real Jews, right? Let's move on. Pretty sure you guys seen this one as well. Once again, depicting Deuteronomy 28:68, because they say Egypt there is America, so that Egypt is a spiritual bondage or whatever. And of course, as you see on the right side, Deuteronomy 28:48, with that same collar with the lines and the spikes coming from it to keep that rebellious or runaway slave from hitting them woods and they can't find him. So let's keep looking. Once again, these are just some images I'm pulling off. Some has even gone to say it's such a curse of the yokes or chains upon your necks. That's why black men today wear necklaces, wear chains around the golden chains and all stuff around their necks. So this further proves they're the true Jews, because they, black men like to wear gold chains around their necks. So some has even resorted to that, just as one I don't have on here, where they say, that the true Jews are black, and they show a picture of fried chicken and the meat offering from Leviticus, saying that's how you prove black people are the Jews, which is false. There's many nations that love chicken. All right, so you see this one. This is a very famous one on Facebook. Which one fit the curse? They show a Jewish man wherever little sect of Jew he is from wherever he at, but they got him on one side and a black slave with that same iron collar around his neck, saying which one fits the curse. And it's kind of pixelated, you guys can't see, but once again, Deuteronomy 28:48. Who fits the curse, right? Yokes of iron around their neck. Here's another photo. Our history is in the Bible. Deuteronomy 28:48. He shall put a yoke of iron around thy neck. Notice you have the Native American man and the black man on the other side, both having chains around their necks. All right, so in this depiction, it's only happened to them. Well, let's get into it. A yoke of iron upon thy neck. You see on the right side, it says, if not us, then who? And then they have the curses, right? So that's the famous question he always asking us. So it says, these images are passed around all over the internet to convince all African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans who believe they are descendants of slaves brought to America, so-called Egypt, according to Deuteronomy 28:68, according to the Black Hebrew Israelite doctrine, in the transatlantic slave trade are the biblical Israelites in the Bible, and that these curses identify they are God's chosen people. No one else has gone through these curses. As a result of being oppressed, which many people groups are today, just open your eyes, watch the news, if you will, or just look at history. Many people are oppressed to this day. All right. A lot of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, as a result of the oppression here, they latch on to the idea that they are God's chosen people based on their oppression or based on the curses. When the Black Hebrew Israelites are on the streets with their posters, pseudo-history, militant continents, strong reading, and coded way of interpreting the Bible, Isaiah 28:9-10, which we read earlier, they piece together verses of the Bible to paint the narrative that Deuteronomy 28:48, 49-50, and 68, among the other verses, are talking about the transatlantic slave trade, therefore proving they are the real Jews.
Now, Brother Jay, the producer, is saying that Isaiah 28:11 and 10-11 is pretty much being pieced together with Deuteronomy 28 and 48 and 49. But let's see for ourselves. Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. What does that mean? Those that are strong enough to receive that meat, that strong meat, which is sound doctrine. Those that understand good and evil. Those that Brother Paul told us, those that can discern good from evil. And that was in Hebrews 5 and 12, I believe it is. Okay, well, Hebrews 5, just look at Hebrews 5, start at 12, and see those that are able to understand good from evil. And Paul, he said that he basically taught y'all with the milk because y'all weren't ready to understand good between good and evil. So all y'all that run to Paul, he's letting you know in Hebrews 5 and 12 that you're not able to understand, because if you're running to him to get understanding, then you don't have understanding. Okay? But let's see. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. So that means precept, commandment upon commandment. So that means if you break the commandment, then you'll be judged. Commandment upon judgment, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. Now let's remember that. So that means a foreign people is going to come with a language or a tongue that you're not going to understand, and with stammering lips. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28, 48 and 49, which Brother Jay is saying that is being pieced together. In other words, I don't know if he's trying to see if it lines up or not, but let's see for ourselves. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far. Hold on. Another tongue will speak. When he speak to this people, the Lord shall bring bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue, is there a tongue? Is it another tongue? Let's see. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Ding, ding, ding. Another tongue will he speak to thee. And in Deuteronomy 28 and 49, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. So is that really piecing it together, or is that putting it in a context? Brother Jay, you tell me.
With the belief that the metal chains shown in these images are the yokes of iron in Deuteronomy 28 and 48, that will be upon the children of Israel's be upon the children of Israel until they are destroyed if they transgress their God. Many Black Hebrew Israelite camps like IUIC says that the yokes of iron, according to Deuteronomy 28 and 48, that he shall put on them is talking about the white man that brought them in chains to America during the slave trade, and that the yokes of iron came off, signifying the black man was now destroyed when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by Abraham Lincoln.
Now, it's kind of funny that Brother Jay brought up Abraham Lincoln and the Proclamation of Emancipation. Now, let's just see when the Lord breaks the yoke, what normally happens. We're going to see if we can find a pattern here. Let's see Isaiah 10 and 27. Well, let's start at 24. Therefore, thus said the Lord God of hosts, O my people that dwelleth in Zion, be not afraid of the Assyrians. He shall smite thee with a rod, and shall lift up his staff against thee, after the manner of Egypt, for yet a very little while, and the indignation shall cease, and my anger in their destruction. And the Lord of hosts shall stir up scourge for him according to the slaughter of Midian at the rock of Oreb. And as his rod was upon the sea, so shall he lift it up after the manner of Egypt. And it shall come to pass in that day that his burden shall be taken away from off thy shoulder, and his yoke from off thy neck, and the yoke shall be destroyed because of the anointing. Because of the anointing. All right, now let's go down to verse 33. Behold, the Lord of hosts, shall lock the bow with terror, and the high ones of stature shall be hewn down, and the haughty shall be humbled. And he shall cut down the thickest of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one. All right. So when Israel was taken out of captivity, or the yoke was broken, those of high stature were hewn down. What happened to Abraham Lincoln? He was hewn down. All right. We've seen in Isaiah 10 what happened when the yoke was broken. Now let's go to Isaiah 14 and 25. Let's see what happens when the yoke is broken here. Let's start at verse 1, Isaiah 14 and 1, because everybody likes to use Isaiah 14. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. All right, let's go to verse 25. Well, let's go to verse 24. The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand. that I would break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off of their shoulders. And then let's go down to verse 27. For the Lord of hosts has purpose, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? In the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. Okay, back to Abraham Lincoln. When the Lord had mercy on Israel, aka the slaves, after the emancipation, after the proclamation of emancipation, what happened to Abraham Lincoln? He was gunned down, and I almost got to think that America kind of knew that, they were Bible readers and they understood the Bible, and they understood that they had went too far. So instead of getting judgment passed on America, America chose to go to war and free the slaves, because I think they knew, or the Spirit of the Lord stirred up in them to free the slaves. Otherwise, the nation was going to be torn down. And at that time, were they full of wickedness? I don't know. I wasn't living then. But was the iniquity full? Couldn't have been, because America is still standing. So the South, the North raised against the South and stirred up a spirit in the North and caused a war. So had that not happened, then the iniquity, would it have filled up? Possibly. And would America have been conquered? Possibly. Interesting.
What enemies? What enemies is it talking about? It's talking about the white man and transatlantic slave trade? No. Deuteronomy 28 and 48 is talking about King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and his sons and his sons' sons. That's why it says, and thou shalt serve thine enemies, because you will be serving Babylon, who's ruled by King Nebuchadnezzar, as well as you're going to serve his sons and his sons' sons, talking about his grandson, his grandchildren. Let's read on. Now, where does this say this? It's going to be a lengthy read, but we're going to get through it. This is Jeremiah chapter 27. I'm going to start at verse 1. We're going to find out, this is Deuteronomy 28, 48. In the beginning of the reign of Joachim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck, and send them, talking about the bonds and the yokes, and send them to the king of Edom. Now, the first thing to note is that this first bonds and yokes is not iron, but wood. And there's a reason why the Lord had him do this, because as we read on. So it was wood first. So it says, and send them to the king of Edom, and to the king of Moab, and to the king of the Ammonites, and to the king of Tyrus, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which come to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah king of Judah. And command them who? Edom, Moab, Ammonites, Tyrus, Zidon, and whatever lands they rule. Because these are going to the kings. So they have their provinces, their ruling. So he says, and tell them, and command them to say unto their masters, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Thus shall say unto your masters, I have made the earth, the man, and the beast that are upon the ground by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. So he said he made the earth. What's the earth? All that's in it. The water, the land, the beast, all that God created in the earth, he's handing over to someone that he's calling his servant, or that he seems meet for him, or right. That's what that means. Meet, meaning right. Verse 6. And now have I given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beasts of the field have I given him also to serve him. So the Lord made the earth, the man, and the beast. And the earth consists of the water, the beasts that roam on it, and the man that roam on it. Meaning everything that consists in the earth. Water, materials for clothing, and food, because the beast will serve him. When you read other translations, it says that all these things became slaves to him, to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. So the earth, the man, and the beast, all given into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Verse 7, and all nations shall serve him. How many nations? Just Israel? No. All nations shall serve King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. And his...
I mean, to me, it sounds like Brother Jay is saying that the Babylonian captivity fulfilled Deuteronomy 28. To me, that sounds pretty far-fetched, and I'm just dealing with the languages aspect, this go around. And let's just dig into it. Okay, and let's see here. The earliest Aramaic, and this is from some EDU website, cal1.cn.huc.edu/Aramaic language. Okay, the earliest Aramaic. Our first glimpse of Aramaic comes from a small number of ancient royal inscriptions from almost 3,000 years ago, 900 to 700 BC. Dedication to the gods, international treaties, and memorial Stella revealed to us the history of the first small Aramean kingdoms in the territories of modern Syria and southeast Turkey, living under the shadow of the rising Assyrian Empire. All right. Aramaic as an imperial language. Aramaic was used by the conquering Assyrians as a language of administration, communication, and following them by the Babylonian and Persian empires, which ruled from India to Ethiopia, and employed Aramaic as the official language for this period. Then 700 to 300 BCE, Aramaic held a position similar to that occupied by English today. Okay. Aramaic displaced Hebrew for many purposes among the Jews, a fact reflected in the Bible where portions of Ezra and Daniel are in Aramaic. All right, Jewish Aramaic literature. Okay, so anyways, basically, and this is something I got to do the history on to see, and see if the Assyrian captivity took precedence over the Babylonian captivity. Let me see. So, just looking at the timeline, the second invasion of Israel from Assyria was 725 BC to 722 BC, and the Babylonian captivity with Nebuchadnezzar was 606 BC. So, looking at it, Aramaic was used by the conquering Assyrians as a language of administration, communication, and following them by the Babylonian and Persian empires. So, the Babylonian and the Persian empires, they spoke Aramaic too, which is a Semitic language. So, now what Brother Jay has to do is break down what another tongue or a language, a tongue that they would not understand coming from far away. And that nation would come swift like an eagle flieth to take Israel in captivity. So if that is talking about Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar, as Brother Jay is saying, now he has to prove what another tongue means when we already know that Israel, when they were taken into captivity by Babylon, they were already speaking Aramaic languages when they were in captivity from the Assyrians. So until Brother Jay is able to clear that up, his lining up Deuteronomy 28 with Babylon as being fulfilled, not as a part of fulfilling, but as being fulfilled, which means the end all, then that means Brother Jay is a heretic until he could prove otherwise, because his history isn't lining up. It's not adding up. And he needs to cut that mess out.
Son and his son's sons, until the very time of his land come, and then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. Because when you guys read through that, the rest of what happened with Babylon, the Lord came at the end, sent the Medes against them and the kings, and they smote them and destroyed them. All right. So verse 8, and it shall come to pass, listen very carefully, that the nation and kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation will I punish, saith the Lord, with the sword and with the famine and with the pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. That verse, and we'll read on, quotes Deuteronomy 28:48 to the T. It says, and thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee. In hunger, why? Because God had given him the earth. And in thirst, why? Because the Lord had given him the earth. So he ruled the waters, he rules the things of the earth, even the wild animals shall serve him. And in nakedness, because if he rules the earth, he obviously rules the material and all that kind of stuff, and can make the decisions in terms of the materials of the earth, because he's in control of it. And he, talking about this King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Is that not what this verse just said? That the nation and kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation will I punish, saith the Lord, with the sword and with the famine and with the pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. Let's read on. Therefore, hearken not ye to your prophets, nor to your diviners, nor to your dreamers, nor to your enchanters, nor to your sorcerers, which speak unto you, saying, ye shall not serve the king of Babylon. For they prophesy a lie unto you, to remove you far from your land, and that I should drive you out, and ye should perish. But the nations that bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, those will I let remain still in their land, still in their own land, saith the Lord, and they shall till it and dwell therein.
Brother Jay just keeps failing. He's tying in Babylon and saying all nations shall go under bondage in Babylon. But I thought Deuteronomy 28 was talking about Israel, not all nations going into bondage. Kind of confused. All right, let me see verse 48 and see in Deuteronomy 28 and see if I see something different now that Jay brought that revelation out about all nations are going to go into captivity under Babylon. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. I mean, when it says, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, that's talking about Israel. I don't see in Deuteronomy 28 where it says, the Midians, the Moabites, the Edomites, all of them going into captivity in Deuteronomy 28. I don't see that. So I need Brother Jay to help me see that. Because right now it's like that guy's just reaching so hard and he's under the spell of that Hebrew roots movement. He doesn't even know it, but he's a part of the Hebrew roots movement led by Faithful. And that dude Kimiel is a part of it too. And I'm going to bring out a video where he's talking about the Ninevites and how Israel wasn't in the Ninevites or something in the land of Nineveh. And these guys, man, they just come with all this heresy. And G-Man always says, yeah, you know, Nineveh this, Nineveh that. Oh, man. Heresy, man. Straight heresy. But, Brother Jay, go ahead and pull that out for us and show us in Deuteronomy 28 where all nations went under captivity of Babylon or one nation. Just show us, Brother Jay. I don't mean any disrespect, but since you have been weaned from the milk and you've been taught with the strong meat, I'm pretty sure you could bring that out with no problem. So bring it out, brother.
So the Lord says, the nation that will not put their necks under the yoke, meaning subjection or rule, or the nation that will not serve, meaning be slaves or bondage, slavery, whatever word you want to put there, to the king of Babylon, the Lord will remove that nation from their land and it would perish. And he will consume them or destroy thee by his hand, if you do not place your neck under the yoke of Babylon. And like I said before, at the beginning, that yoke that the prophet Jeremiah made first and sent to all the nations, rulers, was wood. Now, let's move on. So when did it turn to iron? When you read the next chapter, Jeremiah 28, this is verses 9 through 17. Sorry, verse 10. Sorry, I got 9 on there, but I started at verse 10. When you read verse 9, since I got 9 there was a quotation mark, prophet of the Most High, who came unto the people and prophesied a lie to him and broke the yoke of wood off of the prophet Jeremiah's neck and gave a false prophecy. So let's see what happens. Verse 10. Then Hananiah the prophet took the yoke from off the prophet Jeremiah's neck and brake it. And Hananiah spake in the presence of all the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, even so will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, from the neck of all nations. Wait a minute.
This is really bad what Jay is doing, because he's really trying his best to finagle that Hebrew roots movement doctrine that Faithful pretty much modernized or updated, whatever you want to call it. It's sad because Brother Jay, he's just lost in the sauce and he's thinking he's doing something good. You can feel his conviction, and it's just so painful to watch and listen to this brother that needs to be on the milk, and Faithful needs to be on the milk, and it's just painful to even listen to those guys. Like, like they're just talking about something that they know about, and they don't know squat. They don't know diddly. It's painful, brothers. Stop the heresy. Come out of it, please.
Nebuchadnezzar would have had was wood over the nations, then the nations could rise up and break the yoke, meaning defeat King Nebuchadnezzar and take over. But the Lord said, not so. All the nations are going to serve him. I'm going to turn that yoke of wood to yoke of iron. You will not be able to escape his rule. You will not be able to escape the bondage of Nebuchadnezzar. You cannot escape from iron when it has you bound. So it says, but thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. Verse 14. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have put a yoke of iron upon the neck of all these nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and they shall serve him. And I have given him the beasts of the field also. So, to answer the Black Hebrew Israelites question, who else had yokes of iron on their neck? It only happened to the black man in America or the Hispanics or the Native Americans. God said he put a yoke of iron upon all the nations' necks. All of them. All of them. And we're going to find out, because that's fulfilling the words of the other prophet, and we'll get to that shortly. But God said he put a yoke of iron upon the neck of all the nations. Now, verse 15. Then said the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah the prophet, Hear now, Hananiah, the Lord have not sent thee, but thou makest this people to trust in a lie. Black Hebrew Israelites that's out on the streets, twisting these various scriptures, but to stay on topic, twisting Deuteronomy 28 and 48 by standing in the face of the so-called white man, in the face of the Asiatic man, in the face of the Africans, in the face of the Arabs, in the face of any other nation outside of blacks, Hispanics, and the Americans, and telling them who else went through these curses, who else had the yokes of iron around their necks. It only happened to us. God said, y'all all a bunch of liars, because he put the yokes upon the necks of all the nations to serve King Nebuchadnezzar. All of them. So the next time somebody asks y'all that question, who else had yokes of iron around their necks? Tell them all nations did. All of them. Let's read on. So let's find out what God did to Hananiah, the false prophet. Just like Just like he's going to do these false prophets in the Black Hebrew Israelite movement, in the Christian church that's come up in there with this crap. He's going to put y'all to death too. Just like he did Hananiah. For making the people trust in a lie, giving them false hope, making them hate other people, making them prideful in themselves. We only went through the curses. Who else? It's a sign upon us. But God said all the nations had yokes of iron around their necks. So who's lying? You or God? Who or God? Get a precept. Where's the precept that said only Israel had yokes of iron around their necks? Let's read on. This is what happened to Hananiah. Therefore saith the Lord, behold, I will cast thee from off the face of the earth. This year thou shalt die, because thou hast taught rebellion against the Lord. So Hananiah the prophet died the same year in the 7th month. So for a man to come, break the wooden yoke off the prophet and said, God said, the word of the Lord came to me because I'm the prophet of the Most High, come back, that I will break the yoke off the neck. I will break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, from the neck of all these nations in the space of 2 full years. Sounds pretty familiar, and we're going to get on this towards the end, but it sounds pretty familiar to Christ is coming back in the year 2000. That's as God said. Oh, no, that failed. So, September 23rd, 2017, 400 years of slavery. It's going to be over for us. Christ coming back. Oh, we're going to find out. Oh, no. Here's the other batch. 2019, 400 years, slavery's over with. Christ coming back. UFO going to beam us up. We're going to find out. And God is going to prove all y'all false prophets. And everybody that's sharing them stupid memes, sorry. The brothers always got to correct me with that. It's memes, not memes. All of y'all that's sharing that garbage, y'all all under that delusion. All of y'all under that delusion. So, ladies and gentlemen out there, when September 24th come by, everybody that's been sharing that September 23rd crap, label them as false prophets. When 2020 comes, and they still over here in America, label them all as false prophets, just as God proved them false prophets in the year 2001, when 2000 passed, and they were still right here, talking about they in captivity. So, God killed the false prophet, Hananiah, for making the people trust in a lie. And that's what you guys are doing as well. God said all the nations had yokes of iron around their necks. So the yoke of iron was not literal iron chains, but was a simile to servitude. Let me ask y'all this common sense economical question. Since God said all the nations had yokes of iron upon their necks, and the Black Hebrew Israelites say, like we saw in the video, who else as a nation had yokes of iron around their necks till they were destroyed? Let me ask y'all this, because God said all the nations had yokes of iron around their necks. How many yokes of iron would it have took to bring everybody on the planet under subjection to Nebuchadnezzar if it's talking about literal iron chains? And how long would it take for them to capture everybody and put them in chains so that they can serve him? How long? So the yoke of iron was not literal iron chains, but was a simile to servitude. That's why when we read the scripture, it said, and the nation that does not bring their neck under the yoke of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and serve him, meaning all nations was his slaves, meaning all nations was in captivity, meaning all nations were in bondage to King Nebuchadnezzar and his sons and his sons' sons. Let's go on. Not only was it not literal iron yokes, but the iron yokes was placed upon the neck of all nations. All of them. So, the next time a Black Hebrew Israelite asks, who else had yokes of iron around their necks? Tell them all nations. But wait, let's look again at Deuteronomy 30:7. it says, and the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. Now, the Black Hebrew Israelites, they say it all the time in the streets. All the nations came against Israel. That makes sense why all nations had iron yokes around their necks until they were destroyed, being ruled by King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Even so much that the earth itself and the animals were also his slaves. So we're going to find out about that whole earth and the wild animals and all the nations being slaves, being in bondage, having iron yokes around their necks. So notice at the bottom, it says that Israel will return to the land and shall obey the voice of the Lord and do all these commandments which he commanded them this day. What day? What day? Deuteronomy 6, 1-3 says, now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go to possess it, that thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee, thou and thy son and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as the Lord thy God of thy fathers have promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey.
Brother Jez all over the place, but the Isaiah prophecy is basically lined up with Deuteronomy 6:1. Let me read Deuteronomy 6:1. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither you go to possess it. And what does it say in Isaiah 28:9? Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. So those are the ones that are going to be saved. So I don't know what Brother J is talking about, and he's trying hard. He's still trying, and I'm waiting to see how he pieces this stuff together. But I can't make this video 3 hours long waiting for him. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I might break it down into another part, but I ain't got time to be playing these games with him. And I know he don't feel like it's a game, but I see it as a game because he's playing a faithful game, and faithful is just trying to be right. Faithful is trying to build up AdSense to me so he can start a little heretical ministry, little Nicolaitans, basically saying, hey, it's a Romans 14 thing. What? So you leave Romans 14 up to private interpretation. But Romans 11, you want to freestyle it and dig all into it. You picking and choosing. What's private interpretation and what you going to freestyle on? Faithful, stop being wicked, brother. Still my brother, even though you're in wickedness. You too, Jay.
So notice, it says, the Lord would bring Israel back to the land after they had been removed for transgressing, so that they could keep all the words of Moses, all the words Moses commanded them. Moses equals first covenant. Moses equals first covenant. The Lord would bring Israel back to the land that they may keep all the words, which is commandments, statutes, and the judgments that Moses commanded them. That's right. Put people to death for adultery. That's right. Put people to death for breaking the Sabbath day. Not this best of my ability crap where y'all don't do the judgments. When he was bringing them back, that they may do the statutes, the commandments, and the judgments that Moses commanded them. Moses equals first covenant. So the question is, after Deuteronomy 28:48 happened to all nations, including Israel, did God ever bring them back to the land to keep Moses' law he delivered to them in the wilderness. Yes. Where? You read in Ezra chapter 2, 1 through 2. It says, now these are the children of the province that went up out of the captivity, of those which had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away unto Babylon, and came again unto Jerusalem and Judah, every one unto his city, which came with Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Realiah, Mordecai, Bashan, Mispah, Bigvai, however you pronounce that, Rehum, Benah, the number of the men of the people of Israel. This is Ezra 2, 64 through 70. The whole congregation together was 40,002,303 score, beside their servants and their maids, of whom there were 7,337, and there were among them 200 singing men and singing women. Their horses were 736, their mules 245, their camels 435, their asses 6,720. And some of the chief of the fathers, when they came to the house of the Lord, which is at Jerusalem, offered freely for the house of God to set up in his place. They gave after their ability unto the treasure of the work 61,000 drams of gold, and 5,000 pounds of silver, and 100 priests' garments. So the priests and the Levites and some of the people and the singers and the porters and the Nethinims dwelt in their cities, and all Israel in their cities. So after Deuteronomy 28:48, where the yoke of iron or servitude to King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, was placed upon the neck of all nations, including Israel, after that captivity was over, when God set the nations free, we're going to read when he did that. So God cared, obviously, about the other nations to set them free. So he sets all the nations free, including Israel, and fulfilling the words of Moses and of the prophet Isaiah, which we're going to read, that he was going to bring them back to the land, that they may keep all the words Moses commanded them. That's why they returned back to the temple. That's why they started to again to do the offerings and the oblations, every man, woman in their lands. That's why you also have in Esther 8:17, it says, and in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people, talking about the Gentiles, of the land became Jews. Wait a minute, I thought you couldn't become Jew, you got to be born in it. But the scripture says, and if you ever...
See, Brother Jay is funny. You know what I mean? Because he's going to quote Esther 8:17. And me and him had this conversation before in Faithful. And they act like they got it then, but they try to argue it down, but they couldn't really argue it down. And I see they still using these bad arguments. And this is what he read. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. All right, so when you look at became Jews, I got to highlight it as best I can. You see that became Jews is Yahad, but which is the Hebrew 3054, and that means to basically become a citizen of the land or become something like they do today, like, you know, sort of like a proselyte almost. But as you see, is different than for the fear of the Jews, which is Strong's 3064, which is Yehudi. Yahad and Yehudi are two different words. And then when you look up, and his decree became the Jews, or came the Jews, and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. So even the Jews up top, which are the actual literal Jews, which is the Hebrew 30 and 64, Yehudi, But the other Jews, which became Judeans, or basically those that cleaved to Israel and became a part of the land, not the inheritance, but of the land, are the Yahads. So there's a big, big difference between Yehudi and Yahad. And Jay, he got to cut that stuff out. He's still parroting faithful with these bad arguments, and we've been through it. We talked for hours one time, and I see they won't let the heresy go. So he has to know, because we talked about it. We talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and he still tries to feed those that don't know. So it's like he doesn't even care about being right. I mean, he doesn't even care about the truth. He just wants to prove to y'all that he has a knowledge. He's not trying to bring y'all the truth. Not when it's this clear. There's no truth in that. And he knows it. But he's trying to build up a church. He feels like he could go head on with IUIC. So he calls them a heresy, and he's gonna come with his heresy and take down another heresy. And even him and Faithful are divided. I'm looking for this other video to find out. To find the time where Faithful said Deuteronomy 28 was fulfilled in 70 AD and 135 AD, and now Brother Jay is saying that it was fulfilled in 600 BC in the Babylonian captivity. So they're divided. And let's go into a house divided. Let's see what this says. All right, let's look at Matthew 12 and 25. And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. So even in the Deuteronomy 28, they got different doctrines. The only thing they have in common pretty much is that they want to go after the Hebrew Israelites. Faithful, he's a Hebrew roots movement, so he feels like his doctrine is stronger than the Hebrew Israelites. Jay, he don't know what he is, but he feels like his doctrine is stronger than the Hebrew Israelites. Meanwhile, they're both divided, and that's why their doctrine is taking a beating. They can't stand because they're divided, and they're not even coming with sound doctrine.